I'm sure many of us know someone, if not you, who's felt uncomfortable talking about religion and money or just have feelings of shame or guilt about it. Welcome to Yahweh's Money, a podcast where we discuss the crossroads or intersections of religion and money. We're going to go deep into topics like tithing and saving and debt and so much more from the religious view. I'm your host, Shay Cook, CEO and founder, Crusaders for Change, LLC, and our co-host is Vanessa McNelly, one of our financial counselor, coach, educators. Let's talk about God and money. Hey, y'all. Welcome back to Yahweh's Money. I'm really excited to be here today with Vanessa, my co-host, and Dr. Troy Muhammad, a friend of mine. We worked together back in the Army days in the early 2000s at Walter Reed Army Medical Center and became friends after that. He's a really cool dude. I'll let him introduce himself, but we're going to be talking about God's guidance and on money. So, Dr. Troy Muhammad?
Thank you, Shay. It's a pleasure for me to be here. And as Shay said, we didn't just work together. I actually worked for Shay. That's the truth of the story. And Shay was a financial counselor at Walter Reed in the Army. And my job at that point was more employment readiness, helping military dependents and spouses find employment. And that's how we got to meet. And I met Shay's family, and we all used to get together and have a lot of fun activities. And we became friends after that.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the show and to the episode on God's guidance on money. Vanessa, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, well, I have not met you yet, but we already have something in common. We both work for Shay. So, but I'm super excited to talk to you. So it's so nice to meet you, Dr. Muhammad.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, on this episode, we're going to be talking about what does the Bible say about money, but also going to go into other religious texts such as the Quran, the Vedas, and the Torah, but also talk about more about the religious beliefs and our religious beliefs and the impact that it has on how we handle our finances. So I don't know if you guys know, there are over 2,300 Bible verses associated with money. Everything from tithing, saving, lending, debt, possessions, obsession, and more. So, what resonates with you, Vanessa, when we're thinking about the Bible and the money and all the different Bible verses?
So honestly, I feel like growing up, the ones you hear mostly about are tithing and giving,
Mhm.
because the church would always have us, when they're trying to fund some new project or something, we would have one of those big revival weekends or something. And,
Yeah.
it was just, give, give, give until you can't give anymore.
Hmm.
That
Mhm.
was the message growing up in, Southern Baptist Church. So, that's all we would really hear is just, give, give, give. But I think there's a lot more to it. I think now, though, lending and how we lend money, that's something I'm really interested in us talking about a little bit
Mhm.
more too.
Yeah, and I know Troy, you grew up as a Catholic, or at least had some Catholic. Well, you grew up as a Catholic, right? So did I, and my family's from Baltimore. My mom's side of the family, and they grew up. My dad's family grew up as Methodist. But so, what did you see around the Bible and money growing up as a Catholic?
Right. I grew up in South Philadelphia, and in South Philadelphia, the Church held sway pretty much. So just about everyone grew up in the Catholic Church. And I remember going to church on Sundays, and you would have an envelope, and you would put your money in the envelope and give it to the person who was collecting the monies. But I was really young, so I didn't really correlate being in church with the money. I just thought it was just something you did. And as Vanessa said with the building fund, I think we all remember donating money to that endless building fund,
That
no matter what
endless.
church, synagogue, or mosque we are part of.
Yep. That is so true. We just talked about on our last episode about the envelopes and having to get the 52 envelopes a year. And then
Hmm.
at
Yep.
and week 48, you still got, 50 envelopes and you're like, oh, wait a minute. you
Right.
know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, and they really did that early on too. I remember being 4 and 5 years old and having my own little set of envelopes. And that is, I mean, you don't know what you're doing. You have no idea what those envelopes are really for. But they wanted to get you excited about giving. So
Right.
you had your little envelopes. I remember those too.
but what is that teaching though? Because you're 4 and 5, you ain't making no money. So I mean,
Right.
I
Hmm.
remember being younger too and getting. I don't think I was that young, but I mean, I grew up Catholic and they would pass around the plate, and I don't remember the envelopes. I remember more the envelopes from the Baptist side of my brain
Hmm.
when I was growing up in the Baptist side of the church. But remember my mom giving me $1 or so to put in and the envelope and thinking, oh, well, I'll just get money from mom all the time.
Hmm.
So it's kind of teaching you something that later on in life, like if you need help, you go to mom and dad when you should be more self-sufficient. I don't know. That I just thought
Hmm.
about that right there in a moment. But yeah, what do you guys
Hmm.
think about that?
No, I agree. And I know I got a story. Like when I was young, I had an uncle, and it was Easter Sunday. And he said, well, if you come past my house, me and my brother, at 10 o'clock on Sunday, he was going to give us $5. And this was the 70s. So $5 was like, it seemed like it was probably about $500 today. But he asked us to come at 10 o'clock, and church started at 10 o'clock.
Mm.
So we went to his house. I skipped church and I went to his house. And he said, well, aren't you supposed to be at church? And I said, yeah, but you were going to give me some money. And instead of giving me $5, he gave me a quarter. And I looked at the quarter kind of strange, like, why did you give me a quarter? And he said, I just wanted to see if you want to go to church or was you going to come get the money first?
Mm.
And I
Wow.
was a child, so of course I wouldn't got the money first. But the lesson that he was trying to show me was don't put money over your faith.
Mm.
And again, I was a child. I had no
Mm-hmm.
concept of money. But yeah, I remember that vividly, and I was like, he never gave me the $5. He gave me the quarter. So
Wow.
What an
yeah,
impact.
Life lessons. I know,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
mhm,
No matter what faith you are. I mean,
Uh-huh.
that can really, that's one of them things sets in your mind. And then later on in life, you were dealing with it as counselors and coaches and wondering why you're like that. And because
right,
something that happened in your childhood.
right, correct.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
That's
it
very,
sounds
very,
like we've all had strong influences, in our families growing up, that kind of led us in the way that they followed, just to kind of, I guess, indoctrinate us into their beliefs. But it's nice to see that we've been able to kind of break away from that as well and kind of figure out what works for us.
Right.
yeah. And I just want to point out some of the Bible verses, and then we can go more into the Quran as well as the sacred scripture of Islam. But I know Colossians 1:16 says, "For in him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers of authorities, all things have been created through him and for him." What does that verse mean to you, Vanessa?
Gosh, I mean, that is, kind of sums it up,
Mm-hmm.
that there is one God and he rules and he is over everything and everyone. So, that to me, that just shows that he's in control of everything,
Mm-hmm.
whether, it's the tiniest little situation or something huge in our life. So that's what it means to me. How about you, Shay?
Yeah, similar. But I always go back to if this is what you're reading and this is what you believe in as a young person or old person, that can really set you on a course and bring some shame with it or
Mm-hmm.
guilt if you do not follow things the way it's written, and it's all left up to interpretation. Everybody has a different perspective on, I'm sure, this verse and many verses of whatever religious text you're reading. But I think it's powerful that just something like this, or even First Peter 4:10 says, each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. And talking about God's stewardship and or godly stewardship and how to serve, does that necessarily mean money? Your gifts could
Right.
be
Right.
time, it could be a talent. It doesn't have to
Correct.
be money, and that's where I struggle a lot. And I know I mentioned we're going to be talking about in our next episode going deeper into tithing, but that's where I
Mm-hmm.
struggle with. Does it always have to be a dollar? Can it be my time that I've given back to the community? Does that count when I'm giving back to people at work, or is that separate?
Mm-hmm.
So I have these kind of conversations with religious leaders in my family and outside because I just want to know that I'm serving God in the right way. But does that mean just my time, my money, so various gifts? So that's what speaks to me. But Troy, what do you think about those scriptures?
No, I agree. And when we look at in Islam, when we look at charity, it's not just the monetary charities.
Mm,
Charities could be your time. Charity could be a good word. Charity could be a good deed. Now we know in the world in which we live, in order to obtain certain things, you have to pay charity. So
mm,
if you go to a mosque, a synagogue, or a church, well, that mosque, synagogue, or church has a mortgage or they have to pay rent. And so people, typically the parishioners will pay, they would tithe a certain portion of their pay to make sure that we have a place to go to worship. So we understand that. But charity is not just monetary. And you can't like there's a saying in the Bible. It says something about a rich man has more of a chance of going through the eye of a needle than
Oh
making it to the
yeah.
kingdom of God.
Mhm.
Because
Yep.
sometimes if you have an abundance of wealth, you try to pay your way or pay off your sin. So you might say, okay, I have all this money, I'm doing all these bad things, but I'm gonna treat somebody to dinner or I'm gonna do
Mm.
something, charitable. If I'm a millionaire and I give a homeless guy $100, that's different than if I'm poor and I give the same homeless guy $100 where I don't really have it to give. So yes, we don't believe that you shouldn't try to acquire money because money can purchase things that can make your life a little bit easier. But that should never be your goal. That should never be your focus. The acquisition of money.
Mm.
You should seek righteousness first.
Seek righteousness first, and then
Yeah.
prosperity. Is prosperity a good thing then?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
If you obtain it the right way. Now,
Mm.
in Islam, we are taught that you're not supposed to profit off of other people's pain.
Oh yeah.
So, for example, I'm not supposed to sell you a product that I know is harmful for you. So I
Mm.
shouldn't be selling you like different types of drugs or alcohol or food that I know that's bad for you, even though it might be profitable. So if I wanted to open up, just say, a corner store, and I'm Muslim, I shouldn't sell you anything in that store that's going to be harmful to your health. So I shouldn't try to profit off of your pain or off of your addiction.
That makes sense. Yeah,
To-
I think we believe that too as Christians. But do we follow through with it? I don't know.
And
No, we're
and,
worried
and
about the
typically,
dollar bill first. But yeah, go ahead.
Oh, is that something you see a lot of though? Do you see a lot of Muslims that follow that to a T, or do you see people who kind of, turn the other cheek and, they profit from that?
well, we have a saying that a lot of our Muslim brothers and sisters that come here, especially from different parts of the
Hmm.
world, they put the Quran behind their back and a dollar in front of them, meaning
Mm.
that in Islam we don't eat pork.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But I could go to any of these stores that are owned and run by Muslims and get pork if I want to.
Hmm.
We're not supposed to smoke cigarettes. But I can go to any of these stores and buy cigarettes. We're not supposed to consume alcohol. I can go to any of these stores and buy alcohol. So it's at the end of the day, I think that some people they look at it as though, well, I'm not doing it, and if someone chooses to do it, I'm gonna make money off of it, which is not the way it's supposed to go.
Not supposed to
You're
be that
not
way.
supposed to. You're not supposed to promote that lifestyle. But I see it all the time. We all see it all the time.
Yeah, we're still humans first. I mean,
Right.
even though you're
Right.
supposed to be, Christian, Islam, Muslim, whatever first, but we're still humans. We still make mistakes, and
Right.
yeah, definitely. Wow. So the Quran is the sacred scripture of Islam, and I know one of the principles that we pulled out was that, or of 35:3, one of the verses was, "Is there any creator other than Allah who provides you from heaven and the earth? There is no God but He. How then are you turning away from Him?" What does that say to you? What does that speak to you?
Well, what it means is that everything you do is supposed to be for the glory of God.
Mm.
Now, in Islam, when we say Allah, Allah means God. Allah is
Mm-hmm.
Arabic for God.
Mm-hmm.
So everything you do is supposed to glorify God.
Mm-hmm.
So the way we live, the way we worship, the way we treat others. In Islam, normally throughout the year, there's a month called Ramadan,
Mm-hmm.
in which all Muslims are supposed to fast. But not only are you supposed to abstain from food, you're supposed to abstain from impure thoughts. You're supposed to do good deeds. You're supposed to be very charitable. That's the way you're supposed to live every day. So this is an image of how you're supposed to live every day. So every day you live, you're supposed to glorify God.
Mm-hmm.
And glorifying God, it does include prayer, of course. But glorifying God could be giving people, like we were saying before, giving somebody a good word.
Mm-hmm.
Giving somebody, if you see somebody that's in need, you're helping them in any way which you can. That's glorifying God. Now, the Quran, when you look at the Quran, is we say surahs and ayat. A surah is like a chapter, and an ayat is like a verse.
Oh, okay.
But throughout the Quran, there are plenty of surahs that talk about usury, Usury, and that deals with interest. So we are forbidden to charge interest. So Shay, if you say, Troy, I need to borrow $500, and I give you 500, I loan you $500. You only owe me 500. You don't owe me 550. I'm not supposed to charge you interest,
Oh,
and I'm
okay.
not supposed to get involved in anything that involves interest. Now we know you're not going to really buy a house or a car or anything of a high value without some sort of interest. So it's always a dilemma right there. But we believe that debt is slavery. Whenever you owe somebody, you are enslaved to them. And you're not, before you die, if you have the means, you're supposed to settle all your debts because you're not supposed to owe anyone. But we don't believe in charging interest. We don't believe in, whatever I owe you is what I owe you. Whatever you owe me is what you owe me. I'm not supposed to take advantage of you and charge you more than what you owe me.
No, that's good. I know I'm reading more word and I'm in Luke right now, but throughout the New Testament, it talks about how Jesus didn't like, the tax beggars, the people that was charging interest. So it was a similar philosophy that he had as our, our holy God now that we weren't supposed to charge interest either. But in common day, in the modern times, that is the common
Right.
practice. But then I hear over in Islamic countries, do they do that? Do they charge interest?
Well, they're not supposed to. I would be surprised if they don't,
I
because
know,
they
right?
are
Yeah.
definitely they in the market, they in the business of making money. So
Yeah.
you're not supposed to. But yeah, you're not like when you charge somebody interest, you're taking advantage of them. So for
Mhm.
example, just say Vanessa, you was like, hey, my rent is $2,000. I don't have it this month. Can I please borrow $2,000 so I can pay my rent?
Right.
Well, you are in a weakened position, so I can say, okay, I give you 2,000, but I want you to give me 3,000 back over the course of 6 months. You will probably want to say yes because you are in a position where you need that help.
Right.
And I'm taking advantage of you in that way.
Yeah.
And we're not supposed to take advantage of people in that way.
Yeah.
So that's why we don't really charge interest, and we don't do anything that's like underhanded financially. I'm not supposed to use finances to manipulate my way to get my way with anyone. I'm supposed to treat them. You know how the Bible says you're supposed to treat people as though you want to be treated.
Yes.
Mhm.
That's what same thing Islam. I'm supposed to treat you the way I want to be treated. I'm not supposed to try to take advantage of you.
Yeah.
And the main way it is done is through interest.
Mm.
Even to the point where, there's some conversations right now going on in a mosque about cryptocurrencies and stuff like that,
Yeah.
investing money.
Mhm.
And it's like, well, if you invest, like, what are you really investing in? Like, I don't know what my investment is buying. It might be doing something that is not beneficial to humanity,
Mhm.
but then it's profitable.
Right.
Mhm.
So what do you do?
Yeah.
Mhm. That's so
Think
good.
about the world that we live in, and if more people followed those simple principles, it would be a completely different place, to just think about
Right,
others and to bring glory in all that we do. Um,
right.
it'd be a wonderful place, right?
It really,
Yeah.
it's never gonna happen. But yeah, I mean,
Right.
Right?
it would
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
People are out for their own self-interest. And like
Mhm.
Troy was saying with the
Mhm.
cryptocurrency, a lot of people have been asking me about that in different classes and even in counseling and coaching. And I right now it's not regulated, it's used by a
Right.
lot of bad people to move money across the world and different continents for bad things. So I
Mhm.
just don't want to support that. Maybe eventually, I know a lot of politicians are like, oh, pay me in cryptocurrency to get people involved, not understanding that there's a lot of stuff that behind the scenes going on that's not
Mhm.
beneficial to this world. It's not even just this
Right.
country. But
Correct.
going back to, like you're saying, glorifying God, how do you, as a Muslim in the Islam religion, do they use money to glorify God? Is that just the way they give back to people, or is there something more specific?
Well, we're taught that, if you are a person who has means, you're supposed to help build up or develop your community as well.
Mm-hmm.
So if I live in Baltimore, and Shay, you're from Baltimore,
Mm-hmm.
Baltimore is a city by city block.
Mm-hmm.
One block is great, one block is a little bit less than great.
Yep.
Another block is great, another block is less than great. So if I'm moving to Baltimore and I'm a person of means and sustenance, I'm supposed to try to help those around me to get that same means and sustenance. I'm not supposed to take from them, I'm supposed to give. Not necessarily monetarily give, but again, the best thing you could probably give is a word that would encourage somebody to do better.
Mm.
So, for example, this actually just happened last Sunday. It's a guy who comes around. He wants to wash the cars to make a couple of dollars. So I let him wash the car, and I always, give him more than what he asked for. But I don't just give him money. I always try to talk to him while he's washing the car.
Mm.
Because you know what I mean. The money, who knows what's going to happen with the money? But the message you're giving might be something to help change his life. And that same day, last Saturday, a young lady walked past, and it looked like, life has been a little rough for her. It looked like she might have been, had some substance abuse challenges, if I had to
Mm.
guess. And she asked me, did I have $1? And I said, yeah, I do. But I said, what I want you to do, I want you to help me pick up the trash on the block. So I went
Mm.
and got a trash bag, and we walking, we picking up trash. But again, it's giving me an opportunity to talk to her,
Mhm.
and I wind up giving her more than what she asked for, and everything like that. So it's not about a person moving into a community having money and just giving money away. Because now I'm trying to buy my sins off. It's like, okay, if I'm gonna give you something, I'm gonna talk to you. We're gonna talk about things you can do to get yourself out of this condition. So that's what you're supposed to do in your community. If you are a person of sustenance, you live in the community, you're supposed to try to uplift your community.
And that's no matter what religious background or faith you believe
Exactly.
in. That's
Hmm.
beautiful. Like it
Yeah.
got me want
Yeah.
to shout like, yeah, knowledge is power. And you know what? The money people like, money can buy anything. No, knowledge is what you need. And that's what's going
Right,
to move you forward. And I think even as financial counselors and coaches, people are like, it's about the money. No, it's about the knowledge that we're imparting, the tools, the skills that we're giving people to not only manage their money, but to manage their life and get back on track to be better people.
right,
And then spread
right,
that gospel word, whatever knowledge to other people so we can all grow and be better. That's beautiful. That's beautiful, Troy. That's beautiful.
right. So
Totally.
let me ask you this question. So what do y'all do if you see a person who asks for money and
Mm.
you think they might use that money for an unrighteous purpose? Do you give it to them, or what do you do?
I've
So,
always, so go ahead, Vanessa. You go
oh,
first.
I grew up in a family where, giving brought all of us joy. I saw that in my
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
grandfather and my mother, my father. And, what I was always taught, you don't know what that person is going to use that money for, sure. But wouldn't it be better to give money to someone who didn't
Hmm.
need it than to not give to someone who really needed the money?
Right.
So
Mm.
I was taught from a young age that you give what you can when you can. And sometimes, you have the means to give more, sometimes you have the means to give less, but you give what you can. And it's always been something that I've done. In the past, people have looked down on me for doing that, but it makes me happy and it brings me joy. So I definitely do it whenever I can.
Hmm.
Me, it's more about giving a gift, like as in instead of money, I love to give like clothes, new or
Hmm.
used, and usually because I take such good care of our stuff, my stuff, and even when I'm giving away used stuff is great, or just giving away time, helping somebody, cleaning up for them. I love to clean and stuff like that, or even just food. I'll never
Hmm.
forget, I was working at Coast Guard headquarters years ago, and there was a homeless guy I used to see all the time. I know my dad, he's imparted this lesson on us that every time he would go to DC, he would give bags of clothes to homeless people. And so they just expect my dad to give them clothes, which is great. But I had like just a brand new bag of chips or something, and I gave this guy, and he really wanted money, and he threw my chips on the ground, and I was like, dude,
Oh
like I know
wow.
you hungry.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
Right.
I know he wanted money to do something. He probably had a substance abuse problem, but you could tell, and so I was like, I'm gonna give you food or clothes or something like that. I don't know, and
Right.
just that's me being kind of like controlling, like I don't want you to use my money on anything, but I know you need food and I know you need clothes or water or whatever, and
Hmm.
that's what I love to give to people. But of course I
Right.
will give money if I have to, but I was just really disappointed in that person at that time. That really left a bad taste in my mouth about how people are, with
Yeah.
some
Right.
things. But yeah, so I guess it depends. Yeah. But I wanted to get into, because I mean, this has been a great conversation about how do our religious beliefs impact the way we handle our finances. So I know we talked about that a little bit already, but I mean, taking it back to being a kid and seeing certain things in the Catholic Church and or any kind of church, the synagogue, or anywhere in a mosque, and now you see different things from your parents, the religious leaders in the institution, positive, negative. How does that in fact and handle how does that impact how you handle your finances, Troy?
Well, with me again, it's always the question of like investing. That's the hardest one because
Mm.
you know it's really hard to put yourself in a different financial bracket by just saving. At some point, you have to try to invest to try to find a product that has a high interest rate. But then again, if you Muslim, you don't really believe in interest. How do you reconcile the two? So how do you like? Do you invest? And if you invest, what are you investing in? Investing in? And do you save money? Do you spend it? Like it's a lot of questions. Again, we don't really believe in interest, but you're not gonna get a mortgage without interest
Mm-mm.
unless you just have the cash to pay for the house, or you're not gonna be able to
Right.
buy a car or any high ticket item. So that's always a challenge. In the world we live, you can't really buy a house, unless you get a mortgage. And you get a mortgage, you're paying interest. And as you know, you're paying interest for the first, 10, 15 years is a lot of interest you're paying.
Mhm.
So what do? You got to live somewhere. So that's always the challenge of like, how do you invest money? Me, myself, I try to make sure that if I'm going to do something where I'm trying to make money off of it, I'm making sure that it's not harmful to other people. And you really don't know because you don't control the product. So it's always difficult to do that.
Yeah, that's good. How about you, Vanessa?
Yeah, I think there's so many similarities. My philosophy is, you don't invest in what you don't understand. You
Right.
need to really understand what you're investing in. But I think too, just with religion and how it's impacted my financial decisions. I've been able to live on less and be happy. And I think
Hmm.
that's something people who don't have, a higher power or a God, they're always chasing something, usually money, right?
Hmm.
So I think when you can find happiness in other things, it takes less money to have that happiness. And I
Mm.
think that that's impacted me positively because I can, live on a small salary or a large salary and be just as happy or joyful because of it. But also negatively, I think people expect more from you. They expect you to give more. They expect you to be involved more. They expect those things because of your background and your religion.
Hmm.
Wow,
And
that's
I think
good.
the challenge is we are bombarded with advertisement commercials
Hmm.
where it's this new car, this new phone, or this house, or this, and it's always stuff that you see, and it makes you want it. You're right, Vanessa, and it makes you want to aspire to have those things. And if you don't have the means to get it, it might make you think about, well, I can do this to probably get that. I can probably do this
Hmm.
to get, which is not right. You're supposed to aspire to be righteous.
Right.
But
Mhm.
we live in a world where you're bombarded with information that you shouldn't aspire to be righteous. You should be inspired to be rich,
Hmm.
and that's the world in which we live.
Exactly.
It is this world. It's pretty sad too, especially when you're raising kids in this world, right? So,
Yeah.
thank
Hmm.
God my daughter is aspiring to change climate change and stuff like that and not trying to make the money, but she needs to make the money to sustain because she ain't gonna live in my house forever.
Right, right,
So
right,
it's trying to find that balance is
Yeah.
hard. And then she's
right.
like, I don't want to call you and ask for money, but she needs money, so I need to help her. But then she has rich roommates that they
Hmm.
can borrow at any time. Their parents are going to take care of everything. And
Right.
so it's very different. Yeah. So we definitely need to have that conversation more with kids and people. And I love having those conversations with clients and having going deeper
Hmm.
into, how does your religious beliefs impact you? Because that might be setting you back,
Right,
Right.
right,
and also I think about just when the scriptures or verses or whatever you want to call it were written, these texts were written, it was a very, very different world. They didn't have
correct,
iPhones and
Hmm.
computers and internet and
correct,
cryptocurrency, and weren't thinking about putting stuff in the stock market and
correct.
pandemics and wars. Well, I guess they had some wars, but they didn't
Right,
have all that then. And so it was a
Hmm.
very different context of what we're in now. And I always think about it, even reading the word, and I really believe in it and I can see it. I'm like, but it's still not modern day scripture. And should
right,
we be writing modern day scripture to
right,
I always think about that. It's like, well, when are we going to get more verses or more scripture or books in the Bible? Because I mean, somebody got to talk about this new world, and how would God tell us to live in this new world?
Hmm.
And I mean, and I know some people, they do interpret that if you get like the Bibles or the scriptures or the text with notes in it, and they're like,
Hmm.
well, this is how it would apply to today. But so
right,
I don't know, from Islamic perspective. I mean, with
right,
the interest, that was what, centuries ago, right? When they put
right.
that in
And it's
place.
funny. And it's funny because, like, especially when you go to different parts of the world. Now, let me explain something about Islam for a second.
Mm-hmm.
The word Islam just means submission to do God's will.
Oh,
And the
okay.
word
Yeah.
Muslim is one who submits to do God's will.
One,
That's
that's
what
the
it means.
person. Yeah.
And people think that there are Islamic countries. No, there are countries where the majority of people might be Muslim,
Muslim.
but
Okay.
a lot of the way they practice is a lot of culture
Mm.
intertwined.
Mhm.
So a Christian who lives in Iraq looks just like a Muslim who lives in Iraq. They had the same type
Mhm.
of lifestyle.
Mhm.
Just like a Christian in the United States had the same lifestyle. Like me and Shay had the same lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
But I will say this: sometimes you have some of our brothers and sisters from like this, that's from the Middle East. They always say they try to live their life like Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him.
Mhm.
And the first thing we say is, "Well, you're not riding a camel; you got a Mercedes." So you're really not trying to live the way they lived 2,000 years ago, 1,400 years ago. You're not.
Yeah.
You're not living in a little hut with a
Mm-hmm.
camel. You have a Mercedes, you live in a
Exactly.
mansion. So, I understand what you're saying, but at the end of the day, when you look at those scriptures, as Shay was saying, how can I take what I learned from what happened 1,400 years ago, 2,000 years ago, and apply it to my life now? How can I make the Bible or the Quran or the Torah a living document and not just look at it from a historical perspective, but a perspective of, hey, it's giving me guidance for my life right now. And
Right.
that's always the challenge. Now, I think some people, we look at it from, like these are stories or parables that happened 2,000 years ago and it doesn't apply to me. It
Mhm.
absolutely applies to you because if you're talking about somebody being a prophet, they prophesizing what's going to happen in the future, not what's happening in the current day. So we
Mm.
should be able to take the scriptures and apply it to our life. If not,
Right.
then what are we doing?
Yep. And I do. But you're right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I have a full on my Bible is like an extra 1,000 pages long is because it has everything explained out and different notes. And I love the notes because it just breaks down each line in the scripture to modern day application and it just makes it make more sense. So, Vanessa.
Right,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. And just even the differences in needs and wants. Needs and wants have
Mm.
changed so much. Today, technology is still a want in a lot of ways, but in a lot of other
right,
ways, it's a need too. We need that
right,
to work, to get things accomplished. So I think, yeah, being able to take that and say, okay, that worked then, but things have changed a little bit, and I'm okay with that.
right,
And yeah, and some people are not. But just being able to take that and say, okay, yeah, I'm okay with that. This is what it means to me, and I'm okay with that. Is something
right,
that I think a lot of people have a hard time with.
right,
Yeah.
right. Correct, correct. But I think I just know in Islam, the culture gets so much mixed up with the actual religious beliefs that it's really hard. Like
Mm.
people take like, oh well, if you Muslim, you're supposed to do this. A woman's supposed to walk 3 paces behind a man and
Mm.
stuff like that. Well, that's something that might happen in Japan as well. You know what I mean? So that's
Mm.
more of a
Mm-hmm.
cultural thing, not a
Culture. Yeah.
religious thing. Right. Like the Quran teaches you to dress modestly. Well, modest in Saudi Arabia looks different than modest in New York. Modest in New York might be, jeans, sneakers, and a
Mhm.
shirt.
Yeah.
But in Saudi Arabia, that's not necessarily considered modest because the culture there is a little bit different. So you
Mhm.
might see people covered up more. But
Mhm.
again, it's modesty. The whole purpose of it is not to promote a lustful environment. That's the whole
Mhm.
purpose of it.
Mhm.
So you'll see people, well, the woman, her hair is not covered up. I mean, in New York, no one is going to look at a woman's hair, considering what we can see in the United States and be turned on, because there's so much stuff you're going to look at with a woman. I'm not going to look at the hair. Oh, look, she got braids. But now, if you're in Saudi Arabia where they typically don't see the hair of a woman, it might be
Mm.
perceived differently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But modesty is the key. I'm not supposed to promote a lustful environment.
Mhm. Oh, that makes good sense. And I can see
Yeah.
the same with money too, right? The misinterpretation of the
Yeah.
text and how you're supposed to use your money or serve God and people and yourself with money. There's definitely a lot of misinterpretations there. And that's what we're here to talk about, the intersection of money and religion and how people misinterpret it and how it can really affect you positively and we see more or less is negatively when it comes to money and religion. So
Right.
awesome. Well, any final words before we wrap up?
I would definitely like to thank you for having me. It was definitely an enlightening conversation. And at the end of the day, when we look at religion and money, if you have a person that's Muslim and is living the life they're supposed to live, a person that's Christian and they live in the life they're supposed to live, and a person that's Jewish and they live in the life they're supposed to live, we're supposed to look the same.
Mm,
It's not that much difference.
yeah.
It might, if you're talking about 100%, there's probably 98, 99% of things that we agree upon. And the 1% might be dogmatic practices of
Mm-hmm.
the religion. So at the end of the day, we're supposed to have the same appearance if we are all living the way we're supposed to live. And with money, we are not supposed to take advantage of each other. If I'm in a strong position and somebody's in a weaker financial position, I'm not supposed to take advantage of their ignorance to profit off of their pain. That's the main thing about Islam. Don't profit off of another person's pain or ignorance. Don't profit financially off
Yeah.
of their pain and ignorance.
Oh,
And that's a problem across the
yeah.
world, but definitely not. We should not. We definitely shouldn't be doing it, but it's definitely seen often.
Yeah.
Vanessa?
No, and it's been so nice talking to you, Dr. Muhammad. I feel like so many times, like you said, it's that 1 or 2% that's different, but that's what people focus on is the differences versus the similarities. And there are so many similarities, and we should all want what's best for, ourselves and our families and our friends and people we don't know. So that's been so nice to kind of hear that and talk
Right,
through that. So thank you.
right.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you both, Dr. Troy Muhammad, Miss Vanessa McNally, and I'm Shay Cook with another episode of Yahweh's Money. Really enjoyed this conversation. We might have to have a part two. I'm sure we will because it was so good. We can go even deeper. But definitely, if you have any questions, please email us at Yahweh at crusaders4change.org. We would love to answer those on the next episode. And as well, if you need any assistance getting out of debt, improving your credit, saving, and much more, we're here to support you. You can go to our website, crusaders4change.org, and schedule a 15-minute clarity call. So thank you for your time. We look forward to talking to you in our next episode. Thank you for listening to this episode. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the crossroads of religion and money. Also, we would love to hear your feedback on today's episode, so please leave us a review or just tell us what's on your mind. And remember to follow our podcast. If you have any questions or suggestions of topics for us to discuss, please email us at Yahweh@crusaders4change.org. To hear all of Yahweh's Money latest episodes, please visit us at www.crusaders4change.org or wherever podcasts are found. God bless.